listening to the So Now What podcast with Lana Manikowski, episode number 126. Ladies, so much to cover off on this week on episode 126 of the So Now What podcast. We are just coming off of the third annual Mother's Day brunch that took place here in Chicago. There was also a beautiful ambassador hosted event by my dear friend Melissa out in Seattle. She had a fabulous turnout. There was news coverage here in Chicago, the third largest media market in the United States. I was on the local news here in Chicago, and then I was actually on the national news on Sunday talking about the Mother's Day brunch. Why is this important? Because finally people are hearing our stories and understanding that there is a subset of women who are grieving around Mother's Day, women who have for a long time felt isolated and invisible, people who maybe like us have never been able to have biological children, maybe people who have lost their mom or have a severed relationship with their mom or a mother figure. And I purposely do it the day before Mother's Day because I don't want to take away from Mother's Day. If you have someone in your life that you want to celebrate on Mother's Day, the Mother's Day is not intended to take away that opportunity, but an opportunity for you to come and grab what it is that you need from the energy that is in the room. And for those of you who attended from out of town, or here locally in Chicago, you know that the energy was high in the room. It was literally so beautiful to see people walk in the room there was one girl I remember, she was just kind of sort of shaking when she walked in, and I could tell that she had some anxiousness. And she was one of the last people to leave because she was having an absolute blast. So I think of people like her, and then I think about the women who flew in from various parts of the United States. And some of them had, reached out to me prior and said, I'm coming. I don't know anyone. And what did I do? I got on the horn with my tried and true other women in this community that I knew were very inclusive. And I said, hey, so-and-so is coming in. Can you reach out to this person and that person and make sure they feel included? And they were just like this total group of women who most of them had never met in person, only on social media within our fertility community. And it was beautiful to see how they hung out and got together and did dinner and did coffee and just explored Chicago. So my heart is super full. And more importantly, I'm recording this today on my 50th birthday. Gasp. Yes, I am 50. And I think about wow, I didn't think I'd feel this great when I'm 50. I remember going to birthday parties when I was a kid for different family members, and they had the black over the hill signs and the cane with the horn on it and all this stuff. And I'm like, I could not even feel any better today than I do. So yes, I am 50. And that's what I want to talk about in this week's episode of the podcast, about being infertile, about knowing that you're not going to be a mom, and how birthdays can be challenging to navigate. And for a long time, I was super down about another birthday coming, and you might be too. And I want to help you think about some ways and some perspectives that you might have in order to not dread your birthday every year, and to be at a place where turning another year older does not mean that you've got another year of sentence ahead of you for this life that seems really hard to navigate. So let's just dive in. Okay, so let's talk about some common ways that women feel about their birthday when they're childless. You might be feeling like, what in the world did I accomplish with this year? You might be thinking, another year has gone by where my biological clock is ticking, and I'm another year closer to menopause, and therefore another year less that I might miraculously be that person who tried fertility treatments forever and then ended up getting pregnant on their own. I know that. I remember that feeling of being like, wow, here we go. One less year of this dream happening for me. You might also be thinking, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with these remaining years in my life? I know that there are many of you out there that think about your future, no matter what age you're at. Like for me, God willing, I'll still be around another 35, 40 years. Who knows? I don't really think about like wanting to live to 100 as long as I'm healthy and happy and in sound mind. Like for me, that's the age that I want to go and leave this earth being in those conditions. But who knows if that will happen or not. But I remember, and you might too, thinking like, gosh, what am I going to fill my time with these next 40 years, these next 50 years, depending on what age you are? And it might feel really heavy to be like, what am I going to do? Like, how am I going to feel this way that I feel right now and continue on for all these years existing in this heaviness? And the truth is, there's more for you. And that was the message that I never heard. When I left my fertility journey, I was in my 40s. I had started fertility treatments when I was 37, taken a break, and then again started in my 40s at a different clinic. And I remember just being like, what am I going to do? There was no help that was given to me. There was no therapist. There was no coach. There was no podcast. There was no recommendations for what I was going to do to fill the rest of my time in my life that felt meaningful. Because I always thought that I'd become a mom and the activities that were brought forth, the hours and the years and the milestones that I'd spend in my life were going to be based on being a mom. Like I just thought it was going to be a layup for me. And when I had to think about filling my time and filling every hour of your day with something that you are choosing to do, it's not easy. It does not feel freeing. A lot of people might be telling you, you are so lucky. You can do whatever you want. You can go home and not have to worry about homework with kids or wake up on a Saturday and you don't have to be at a soccer tournament in BFE miles away from your house, carting your kid and sitting on the sidelines of 8-year-old soccer games. You could just like wake up and, oh my gosh, you're so lucky. But when you think about year after year of filling that time, it feels really heavy. And those are the things that I think a lot of people have been shortchanged by the fertility community. We have been shortchanged by our providers. And I'm not here to get on a rant for that, but I am here to let you know it does not always have to feel this hard. And because you have not been given the resources you thought you would, they are here for you. I want to serve them up on a platter for you. And listening to this podcast tells me that you at least have this to start this journey to freedom and this journey of fulfillment and this journey of excitement in your future in this exact year of your birth. I want you to know that you can create the change that you need right now. And how do you do it? You start to think about what it is that you want. A lot of us don't know that we can choose things for us that seem great. We don't know. Nobody tells us that we can desire a life that feels meaningful and fulfilling, even though we don't have kids. So we just toss our hands up, not because you're doing it wrong, not because you are not a motivated person, but you have not been told that you can start to dream again. You can start to create goals for yourself again. You can start to be excited about your life and your future again, even if you didn't have your dream of motherhood. So start with me today and let's think about the things that you have been through and you have accomplished and write them down. I've been doing this for the last couple of weeks now, knowing that I'm going to be embarking on my 50th year. I wanted to recount some of the things. I did mine in a decade because, this is a new decade for me. But for you, it could be in 1 year increments, could be in 6-month increments, no matter what it is. Think back to your last birthday. I'm going to go back to my 40th birthday, my last decade. What are all the things that have come up in this last decade for me? For me, in this last decade, I was going through fertility treatments within this last decade. I found out I wasn't going to be a mom in this last decade. We bought the house of our dreams that we thought we were going to bring our babies home to in this last decade. We also sold that house, knowing that we no longer needed to have attachment to that house because it wasn't going to be the house that we brought our babies home to. I have got my life coach certification in this last decade. I have started this podcast in this last decade. I have gone through menopause and started menopause in this last decade. I have resigned from my corporate job in this last decade. And all these things that I've done, I'm just kind of giving you ideas, not to rah Lana, but to show you like the things that have come and gone in this whatever portion of time you want to evaluate in your life have given you an opportunity to decide, what do you want to choose to believe about yourself because of those things that you have encountered? Do you want to believe that there is something more for you if motherhood isn't on the track for you? Do you want to believe that the house that you live in, if it feels really heavy when you walk past those certain bedrooms that in your brain you've just always thought were going to be the nurseries and the kids' rooms, is it possible for you to think like maybe there's another place for you to go, or you want to turn those rooms into a different use or a different purpose? Is there an opportunity to create new growth in this place that maybe you had a different vision for? So I want you to really think about what is available to you, because when you don't necessarily have a plan or have a vision for what it is that you're looking to achieve, it's easy to not feel like you are achieving anything. Your brain wants to stay on autopilot and be like, yeah, you're stuck. Life is always going to be this boring. Life is always going to feel this heavy because you haven't given it anything to reach for. And maybe you haven't given it anything to reach for because it feels scary to choose a goal that you might not achieve. Maybe it feels scary because it's hard to let go of the fact that you're not going to be a mom. And it might feel really scary because you might not know who you want to be and what you want to accomplish. But give yourself an opportunity to dream and know that the only person that is going to judge your dream and your hopes and your desires is you. And the best news is you can decide, do I want to judge myself? If this thing that I have been secretly dreaming of or wishing I can do more of, or a feeling that I wish I could have more of, if you don't achieve that right away, can you learn to have compassion for the person that you're working towards being? Or do you want to continue to judge the person that you aren't? And when I realized that I was my hardest critic, and that other people could be disappointed that I wasn't a mom, and other people could be disappointed that I chose not to adopt, or other people could think that it was a bad decision to not do an egg donor, they're allowed to think that, but I didn't have to buy into that. And you don't have to buy into this story that might feel really true. And it might be the only story that you have ever heard about somebody like us who ends up not becoming a mom after wanting that so bad, but is also your prerogative and your superpower to decide what it is that you wish you could believe. And even if it's only a wish, write it down. What is that wish that you have? What do you wish you could believe about yourself on your next birthday? What is it that you wish you could do more of on your next birthday? What is it that you wish you could start to work towards on your next birthday? And write it down. And that's really where it starts. Because once you give your brain some evidence or some thoughts to start working towards, it's going to get working on them. And it's so amazing how just declaring these things, even if they seem like such a stretch to you, if you can declare them knowing that you're not going to judge yourself for the pace in which you achieve them and the route in which you need to go to achieve them, it's just so freeing. Because, of course, we get into this place of nervousness and fear of failing ourselves after having failed fertility treatments for so long. Like, no one wants to think of themselves as a failure in another department in your life. Like, it's bad enough that we're considered failed fertility patients, and then we're going to be failed dream makers. But what if it doesn't have to be associated with failure? And that, my love, is my greatest gift for you. And as this 50th year starts for me, I have made some very pointed decisions on who I want to be in this next decade and how I want to be spending my time. And do I want to be disappointed that I don't have the courage to quit my job, even though I haven't figured out where my health insurance is going to come from? And even though I've only ever been used to making money on my own and not having to tap into resources from somebody else's paycheck, i.e., my husband, like since 14 years old, when I had my first job being a busgirl in a restaurant and washing dishes, I have loved supporting myself and knowing how to create income for myself. And I know that no matter what it is that happens on this next journey, as I decide to walk away from my corporate job that has been a multi-six-figure career for a very long time for me and become a full-time coach and advocate in this fertility community and start to make change in the way that we are seen and the way that the world envisions life when you're childless after infertility, I know that it's going to figure itself out. And I have recreated myself millions of times before, and I know that you can do the same. There have been challenges and unknowns that have come to you, and let this be the year that you allow the things in your life that you know are going to make change. And for me, I said this if you listened to last week's episode about Mother's Day, buy yourself a birthday card and write yourself a letter about the amazing person that you are and why you are worth celebrating. So happy birthday to me, my 50th year, and the year that is absolutely, and the decade that is going to not only make so much change in my life, but make so much change for the women that don't even know that they won't be able to become moms. The women who are not even knowing that they are embarking on fertility treatments and might not be able to have the child of their dreams. So happy birthday, Lana. I'm so proud of you. And if you have any idea of the courage and the beauty and the love that you have shown the world through this heartbreak and this loss that you've endured, life will forever be fulfilled just knowing that you are enough and you are loved and you are celebrated every day. So that is my greeting for me. And I hope that if this is something that you have been struggling with and your birthday feels like it's really hard, or you're dreading your birthday and another year going by, that you'll put this in one of your favorites or save it or download it and re-listen to it when you need it. Because I love you and it's never too late to discover your meaning. I'll talk to you next week.